The archive opens 32,000 years ago in a cave in southern Italy. Someone sat there and ground a seed into flour. We know this because archaeologists found the stone. It was pale brown, not much bigger than a hand, and worn smooth on one end from decades of grinding. It is the oldest food processing tool ever found in Europe. Jump forward to 12,000 years ago in the caves of Morocco. People there ate so much of this food that their teeth rotted. 51% of adults had cavities. That is the same rate as early farmers who ate grain and honey. But these people were not farmers. They were foragers living in a green Sahara. The shells filled the cave floor, thousands of pounds. This was their staple food, year-round, before wheat.
Hold on. Did you catch that? Before agriculture, before bread, before rice bowls and wheat fields, entire human societies were powered by something most of us literally kick off the sidewalk every fall. Acorns. Yeah, the same thing squirrels hoard. So here's the question. If acorns were this powerful, this nutritious, and this widespread, why did humanity almost completely forget about them?
Before barley, before rice, before anyone thought to plant a seed in the ground, food fell from the sky. This is the story of the acorn. In California, acorns were found in greater quantities than any other food at archaeological sites. They were used continuously for 9,000 years. 75% of California's indigenous people relied on acorns as a primary food. The Yokut, the Miwok, the Pomo, and the Yurok depended on them. A typical family consumed 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of acorns every year, more than a ton per family. But they did not just gather acorns. They farmed them. When European settlers arrived in California, they noticed something strange. The oak groves grew in perfect rows. They assumed that pattern was natural. It was not. Native Americans had planted and tended those trees. They used controlled burns to clear the undergrowth and promote oak growth. They managed these forests the way modern farmers manage cornfields. The oaks lived for centuries and required no replanting. Certain trees belonged to certain families. Certain groves belonged to villages. Gathering acorns from another village's grove could be grounds for war. Those trees did not just represent a single meal. They represented decades of food security.
Let's pause for a second because this part flips a huge historical assumption. Most textbooks say civilization started with farming wheat and barley. But look at what's happening here: land ownership, long-term resource management, controlled burning, even territorial rights over food forests. That's not primitive living. That's agricultural strategy. In fact, it might be one of the most sustainable food systems humans ever created.
This wasn't primitive food. This was civilization. The Arcadians of ancient Greece were said to have lived on acorns before there was even a moon in the sky. In Spain and Italy, acorns provided 20% of the peasant diet until 1900. Chinese agricultural texts from the 6th century explicitly recommend oak trees as nut crops. Nutritionally, acorns dwarf our modern staples. An acorn contains more calories per serving than wheat or corn. An acorn is 18% fat, 6% protein, and 68% carbohydrate. Modern wheat and corn have 2% fat, so acorns have 9 times more fat than grain. They are rich in vitamin A and vitamin C, essential amino acids, potassium, and magnesium.
Think about what that actually means. A food that grows on trees, produces thousands of pounds a year, has 9 times the fat of grain, tons of vitamins, and can sit in storage for a decade. Imagine discovering that today as a new superfood. Companies would be branding it Ancient Power Nut and selling it for $12 a bag.
When dried, they can be stored for up to 10 years without spoiling. A mature oak tree produces 1,000 pounds of acorns per year. Some produce a full ton. An acre of oak forest can yield 6,000 pounds of food. An acre of corn yields about the same. But corn requires plowing, planting, fertilizing, irrigating, and spraying every single year. Oaks require nothing. They grow on steep hillsides where tractors cannot go, on marginal land where corn would fail. Their deep roots prevent erosion. They replenish groundwater. They provide shade, firewood, and lumber. A single oak tree was an entire food system. Plant it once, and your great-great-grandchildren harvest from it. In 1929, an agricultural scientist named J. Russell Smith wrote a landmark book called Tree Crops, A Permanent Agriculture. He studied acorns, he measured yields, he interviewed elders, and he asked a simple question. Why has the oak not already become a great crop? That is one of the puzzles of history. But it isn't a puzzle, it's a tragedy. In 1848, gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill in California. Within a year, 90,000 fortune seekers flooded the state. Before the gold rush, 150,000 Native Americans lived in California. By 1873, 30,000 remained. 80% of the population was wiped out in 20 years. In the first 2 years alone, 100,000 died. Between 9,000 and 16,000 were murdered in cold blood. This was not an accident. This was policy. In 1851, California's first governor, Peter Burnett, addressed the state legislature. He stated clearly that a war of extermination will continue to be waged between the races until the Indian race becomes extinct. The state funded militias to hunt Native Americans. It paid bounties for scalps. Between 1851 and 1852, California spent $1.7 million on...
This is the moment where the story stops being about food and starts being about power. Because destroying a people's food system is one of the fastest ways to erase a civilization. Burn the granaries, cut the orchards, outlaw the land management practices, and suddenly an entire culture is labeled primitive, when, in reality, its infrastructure was deliberately dismantled.
Dollars on genocide. But militias did not just kill people. They targeted the food system. They burned villages, and they specifically burned the acorn caches. Diary entries from 1851 describe militias hunting families and burning their acorn granaries to starve the survivors out of the foothills. The state made it illegal for Native Americans to practice controlled burns. This was the very technique that had maintained the oak forests for 9,000 years. Federal officials negotiated 18 treaties with California tribes, guaranteeing 7.5 million acres of land. The U.S. Senate rejected every single one. Settler violence continued. Oak forests were clear-cut to plant wheat and corn. European settlers brought pigs. Feral hogs roamed the forests, eating tons of acorns, destroying the food supply for the tribes that remained. A newspaper editorial from the time summed it up. "We have destroyed their oak orchards. We have cut down their wheat, which was the seed of wild grass. We have slaughtered the men and debauched the women. And now the atonement is to be utter destruction." This was not just progress. This was elimination. Because a food system based on oak trees had a fatal flaw in the eyes of the new economy. It could not be controlled. An oak tree does not require you to buy seeds every year from a merchant. It does not require fertilizer or pesticides. It does not even require you to own the land. Oaks grow wild. You cannot easily tax someone for gathering acorns from a forest, but you can tax someone for buying seed corn. Annual crops require ownership, cultivation, dependency. Acorns required none of that. A perennial food system that feeds people for free is a threat to an economy based on...
That line right there might be the most important idea in the entire video. Modern agriculture is built around annual crops, plant, harvest, buy seeds again next year. But a forest food system? That runs on abundance, not dependency. And here's the big question for you. If a food system can feed communities for generations without constant buying and selling, who actually benefits from replacing it?
Based on scarcity. So the oaks were cut. The people who knew how to process them were killed. And the knowledge was labeled primitive. But knowledge is harder to kill than trees. A Coast Miwok elder named Julia Parker was asked why she still goes through the laborious process of making acorn soup. She said it was life to them in the earlier years, and it is still life to many of us who want to learn the ways. We should not lose the old way. Today, the cracks in the industrial system are showing, and the acorn is returning. In South Korea, acorn jelly dotorimuk remains a beloved staple. In Martinez, California, a modern mill is processing acorns into flour for bakeries. In Texas, entrepreneurs are selling acorn-based crackers. On the Greek island of Kea, the Hamada Acorn Initiative is crowdfunding solar dehydrators, giving island residents a way to earn money from the ancient oak forests that still cover their hills. These are not historical curiosities. They are the beginning of remembering. For 32,000 years, humans ground acorns into flour. For 9,000 years, California tribes managed oak orchards that fed entire civilizations without a drop of irrigation. The trees are still here. They are growing in our forests, in our parks, in our driveways. Most oak trees in America still drop thousands of pounds of food every fall, and we rake them up, put them in plastic bags, and pay to have them hauled away. We were told it was primitive, but a tree that feeds your family for 10 generations without degrading the soil is not primitive.
And this might be the strangest twist in the whole story. The solution to some of our biggest modern problems, soil loss, water shortages, fragile food systems, might have been quietly growing around us the entire time. Oaks didn't disappear. The knowledge did. So the real question now isn't whether acorns can feed people. It's whether we're ready to remember how.
It is the most advanced agriculture humans ever invented. The knowledge is not lost. It is written in the rings of every oak tree. We are waiting for the day we stop calling it squirrel food and remember what it really is. Civilization. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe to Nature Lost Vault and hit the bell. Every like and every share helps preserve this forgotten wisdom together. The next vault opens soon.